Ghost stories. They've been told for centuries now, really. From the Flying Dutchman to the Stanley Hotel. I've always enjoyed a good spooky tale over the campfire, or even in a dimly lit room with a flashlight shining brightly on my face. Similarly, I have also relished in many scary video games dating back to the late 80s, early 90s, and all the way up to present times. That said, not all ghost stories have to be bone-shivering. Hell, just look at Casper the Friendly Ghost, right? Today we are reviewing the not-so-scary indie release Hauntii. But does Hauntii make me a believer, or am I going to remain skeptical? Let's find out in our full review. Hey, before we shine a light on this ghostly apparition, why not scare off the gaming echo chamber by supporting independent content? At patreon.com/idreamofindiegames, you'll gain Discord access to the greatest indie gaming community, early ad-free shows, shoutouts at the end of every video we produce, and even free games depending which tier you select. Also, for even more fun chills and thrills, be sure to say hello to Gamer Ghoul Friends streaming live on twitch.tv/idreamofindiegames every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. It's completely free to follow, so what do you have to lose? Your new indie gaming community is waiting for you. Hauntii is a combination of various gaming genres. Half of the gameplay experience is a chill, explorative collect-a-thon, with the other side of the coin revealing traces of a twin-stick shooter. If that weren't enough, the game also tosses in the occasional puzzle for good measure. You play as a seemingly lost spirit who has been catapulted to a strange new world and is tasked with filling in constellations in hopes of ascending. Ascending to where exactly? You'll just have to play to find out. The story is told sporadically through brief cutscenes which are unlocked through game progression, alongside story tidbits that are slowly fed to the player through characters that you'll encounter across your journey. Hauntii's narrative will sometimes take on a serious tone. Learning about your past can be rather emotional, while other stretches of the game had the writers taking a more comical approach. The mixed tone feels a bit jarring to me at times, almost as if Hauntii wasn't quite sure which direction it wanted to go with its narrative. Even still, the world you are trapped within and the reasoning for you being a part of it are at least interesting enough to keep you playing. In Hauntii, players will explore large areas broken up into different sections. The pacing of the game is very slow, with Hauntii's movement speed having more in common with Gary the Snail than Casper the Friendly Ghost. Mercifully, the game does have a dash ability that can be upgraded, but players should still expect a very slow gameplay experience. Your goal in each area is to solve little quests or tasks and collect enough stars to fill out the game's vast constellation map. These tasks range from clearing an area of enemies to even riding a roller coaster backwards. Players can expect a decent variety of different challenges, with some of them being optional and well hidden across the various areas that you'll explore. Spicing up the gameplay a bit is the ability to haunt certain inanimate objects, monsters, and characters too. Haunting involves pumping plasma bullets into your target and then possessing it. One example of this is entering a massive tree and shaking it for loot, or entering the body of a ghost dog to return it to its proper owner. The haunting mechanic is not like much else that I've encountered in a video game before, and I mostly enjoyed it. As a twin-stick shooter, Hauntii is a little bit less successful. The shooting mechanics are fundamentally fine, but the action is slow, much like the rest of the game. Further slowing down the action is the fact that you'll need to recharge for a bit after unloading a certain amount of shots, or what the game refers to as essence. There are a few moments of brilliance to be found where the developers think outside of the box, almost throwing you into a boss fight type situation at times, but for the most part, shooting down foes and destroying objects feels like a bit of an afterthought. Your character can die, rather ironic for a ghost, either by taking too much enemy fire or wandering off of a lit path. Stepping into the darkness for too long will evaporate your spirit, costing players some of their in-game currency that they've collected up to that point. This currency is sometimes used to solve quests, but can also be spent on hats, which are adorable little wearable cosmetics. Regardless of the different ways that the game can kill you, Hauntii is rarely a challenge. It's really more about exploring, taking your time, discovering hidden areas, and generally feels like a relatively stress-free experience, helped further by a fairly common scattering of save points so that progress will not often be lost. On top of that, the more quests that are completed, the more upgrades can be unlocked via the constellation map. Your health, dash, and essence can all be raised by what amounts to a simple skill tree. Generally speaking, Hauntii does a decent job of telling players what their main goal is, and has a solid map system that shows how many key items you've collected in a specific area. This was a nice feature that meant less backtracking and aimless wandering. Despite this, because of the slow speed of the game itself, Hauntii can still feel like a boring slog at times. Getting across certain maps will often feel like it's taking an eternity despite various portals that attempt to speed up the flow of the game. If you go into Hauntii expecting quick movement and action, you'll be greatly disappointed. The first few hours of this game are an absolute drag. Still, the game offers value in the many different items that can be collected. Hauntii has various currencies, tons of quests, and feels fairly open to explore at free will. Visually, Hauntii is quite striking, having a rather unique look when compared to other indie games. The line drawing techniques that have been utilized jump off of the screen, with a limited color palette for each world that creates a very distinct vibe that's kinda difficult to make comparisons to. At times, staring into Hauntii can almost feel like gazing into a sweltering heat or vast desert with what appears to be this hazy, swaying filter over the entirety of the screen. I personally like a little bit more color in my games, but this look does have its charms. There are a few moments throughout gameplay where the camera pans out to better showcase some of the game's amazing set pieces at the cost of visibility for your on-screen character. I can't say I loved the visuals in entirety, but I really did like aspects of them. Sound design, on the other hand, is brilliant. Gorgeous pianos and sweeping orchestrations took my breath away at times. Softer compositions set a nice tone for exploration, and while the game doesn't feature voice acting, you'll get some pretty great cartoonish sound effects to go along with a lovely soundtrack. One effect I really liked was how the sound would distort and change as you ventured off of a path and into the darkness further. Touches like that help to bring the experience of Hauntii to life. I guess you could say the soundtrack is hauntingly beautiful. As far as performance was concerned, the game ran very well without any major hitches on my PC. The only issue I came across was the occasional bad spawn point that would make it impossible for me to escape darkness in certain areas. High frame rates are quite easily obtained, and on Steam Deck I was able to get great performance in the limited time I spent with that version at even 60 frames per second, making it a really good fit for the handheld. I thought the art actually shined really nicely too on the smaller screen. Hauntii is a unique indie game that won't be for everyone. It doesn't nail every genre that it attempts to incorporate, but it does offer up a chill experience that can be enjoyable in shorter play sessions. I enjoyed the art, the collecting, and some bits of the story, but didn't care so much for the combat sections. The haunting mechanic is interesting and clever at times, and the soundtrack is quite exceptional. Hauntii eventually rewards patient players willing to endure its slow pace. I am awarding Hauntii the Bronze Genie Lamp of approval.